Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to use four past tenses, which are the past simple, past continuous, past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. Let's watch. Okay, past simple. When you talk about the past, you're supposed to use the past simple for the majority of the situations, unless there is a reason to use another tense. And I'm going to explain these reasons. Also, when you're telling a story, use the past simple for the main events. Like this example, we arrived at the airport and checked in. Here, there is no other reason to use any other tenses, so we're going to use the past simple. Arrived, checked in. Past continuous. We use this tense to talk about an action that was in progress when another action interrupted it. That's the reason for using the past continuous. Like the examples. I was watching TV when the lights went out. So I was in the middle of the process of watching TV, and then in the middle of that, the lights went out. My father called me while I was having dinner. I was in the middle of the process of having dinner when my father called me. The phone rang while I was sleeping. I was sleeping, and in the middle, the phone rang. So the action that was taking place first takes the past continuous. Here, for example, the action that was taking place first is watching TV. And then the second action that interrupted the first action takes the past simple. Lights went out. Let's practice. Take some time, look at this exercise. All you gotta do is to complete using the past continuous or the past simple. Pause the screen in order to have time to think, and then I'm gonna show you the correct answers. Okay. Let's look at the answers. I called Roger at 9 last night because he wasn't at home. Past simple, past simple. He was studying, past continuous. I didn't hear the thunder last night because I was sleeping. Past simple and then past continuous. My brother and sister were arguing about something when I walked in. Past continuous, past simple. I interrupted the argument. I got a package in the mail. When I opened it, I found a surprise. Okay, I think you might be confused when it comes to this one. I think you might make a mistake. You don't need to use the past continuous in any of these tenses because I opened the package and then I found a surprise. The actions do not overlap. The actions do not interrupt each other. First, I opened and I finished opening, and then I found a surprise after I opened the package. So past simple and past simple. Do the same thing here. All you gotta do is to decide if you're gonna use the past continuous or the past simple. Okay. Now let me show you the correct answers. While Mrs. Emerson was reading the little boy a story, he fell asleep. Past continuous and then past simple. And then anything after that is past simple. So she closed the book and quickly tiptoed out of the room. Past simple and past simple. To tiptoe means to walk on the tips of your toes, like on the tips of your feet, in order not to make any noise while you're walking. Number 6, why weren't you at the meeting? I was waiting for an overseas call from my family. Past continuous. Number 7, how did you break your arms? I slipped on the ice while I was skiing. Number 8, I'm sure you met Carol at the party last night. I don't remember her. What was she wearing? What was she wearing? I really enjoyed my vacation. While you were working hard, I was relaxing. Past continuous for both. You were working, I was relaxing. The actions do not overlap. They don't interrupt each other. Number 10, did you hear what she just said? Past simple. No, I wasn't listening. I was just thinking. Past continuous and past continuous. Now, we're going to move on to something different, which is the past perfect. We use the past perfect to talk about actions that happened before a certain time in the past. Like this example. When we arrived at the airport, we realized that we had left one of the suitcases in the taxi. So we realized that in the past, we had left one of the suitcases in the taxi. So the action that happened in the past is going to take the past perfect. And then the second action is going to take the past simple. Here's another example. My wife had cooked dinner when I went home. So first she cooked the dinner and then I went home. Let's take some time to practice. All you're going to do is to complete using the past perfect or the past simple. Past perfect or past simple. Okay. I'm going to give you some time to think, and then I'm going to show you the correct answers. Okay. Sam had been a newspaper reporter before he became a businessman. I think this one is super easy. Past perfect and then past simple. He had been a newspaper reporter and then past simple. First, he was a newspaper reporter and then he became a businessman. So easy. Number two, I was late. The teacher had already given a quiz when I got to class. So first, the teacher gave them a quiz and then I got to class. Number three, yesterday at a restaurant, I saw Pam Donnelly, an old friend of mine. So I saw her yesterday. I hadn't seen her in ages or in years. Before seeing her at that restaurant, I hadn't seen her. So past perfect here. At first, I didn't recognize her. In the restaurant, I didn't recognize her because she had changed it before I saw her in the restaurant. That's the whole thing. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Now let's talk about the past perfect continuous. We use this tense to talk about an action that continued for a period of time before a certain moment in the past. Now, the main difference between the past continuous and the past perfect continuous is that the past perfect continuous is usually used with time expressions like for 2 hours, since 5 o'clock, and so on. Let's look at these examples. We had been flying, that's the past perfect continuous. We had been flying for 2 hours when the captain told us to fasten our seat belts. So we use the past perfect continuous because we have the expression for 2 hours. If you don't have for 2 hours, you can easily use the past continuous. You can say we were flying when the captain told us to fasten our seat belts. But because you have for 2 hours, then you should use the past perfect continuous. Another example, Eric finally came at 6. I had been waiting for him since 4:30. So I had been waiting, past perfect continuous, because we have the expression since 4:30. Let's practice. Complete the sentences using the past perfect simple or the past perfect continuous. Take your time. And then I'm going to show you the correct answers. You can pause the screen, of course. Let's take a look at the right answers. I was really fed up because we had been waiting in line for hours. Because you have the expression for hours, then use the past perfect continuous. She went to the police to report that someone had stolen her bag, past perfect simple. It had been raining all morning. It's a long period, so use the past perfect continuous. The streets were wet and there were puddles everywhere. She got to work late because she had left her phone at home, past perfect, and had to go back. The past perfect of have to is had to go back and get it. I almost didn't recognize Tony at the party. He had changed a lot since I last saw him. Do the same thing. You're supposed to choose the past perfect simple or the past perfect continuous. Okay, let me show you the correct answers. The tourists' faces were red. They had been sitting in the sun all morning. Yep, past perfect continuous. And they hadn't put on any sunscreen. Don't confuse put on. Don't use the past perfect continuous here. We don't use continuous tenses with the verb put. We don't do that. You may be confused if you're a native speaker of Arabic, but don't confuse put with where. Like you cannot say they were putting or they had been putting any sunscreen. They hadn't put. If you're looking at a man and this man has some sunscreen on his face, don't say he's putting sunscreen on his face. You can say he's wearing some sunscreen or he has some sunscreen. Here is a better example. Okay, you're looking at a man and this man is wearing a hat, right? You don't say he's putting a hat. You say he's wearing a hat. That's what you say. So don't confuse put with wear. You put something one time and then you wear it for a long period of time. I could see from their expressions that my parents had been arguing. An argument usually takes a long time. You don't say that my parents had argued. No, they had been arguing. That's a long discussion. Junko had a bandage on her arm because she had fallen off her bike that morning. I was amazed because I had never seen such an enormous plane before. Past perfect simple. How long had you been walking before you realized that you were lost? Past perfect continuous. How long? The duration. Okay, let's do the same thing. All you gotta do is to read and choose the correct tense. The first or the second. Take your time. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. Megan, Liam, McGuan got a nasty surprise when they were checking in, like when they were checking in the middle of the process of checking in at the airport, they got a nasty surprise. You can never choose the past perfect here. It doesn't make sense. You don't check in first and then you have a nasty surprise after that. With their baby Sean, they had won 3 free plane tickets to Rome in a competition. Before they got to the airport, they won these tickets. So past perfect. And they had been looking forward to the trip for months because we have the expression for months. So you're gonna choose the past perfect continuous and not the past continuous. But unfortunately, they had forgotten to get the passport, past perfect simple, for their son. So Sean couldn't fly. Luckily, they had arrived, past perfect simple, very early for the flight, so they still have time to do something about it. We're gonna continue the same story. Read the rest of the story and also choose the right tenses. Okay. Now let's take a look at the answers. They ran this whole situation inside the airport is gonna take the past simple. If you talk about things that happened before getting into the airport, use the past perfect. They ran to the police station in the airport to apply for an emergency passport. Meg went with Sean, past simple, to the photo machine while Liam was filling in the forms. So she went with Sean, and at the same time, Liam was filling in the forms. The passport was ready in an hour, so they hurried, past simple, to the gate and got on the plane, past simple. Okay, I hope today's lesson was useful. If you have any questions, if there's anything that you don't understand, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum.